Hey everybody, it's Mr. Marshall here at Stony Lane. I wanted to talk to you about some really important work that writers do. Okay, in another video, I told you about this construction that was going on near my house, and how the people had to make a plan before they could ever start building anything. And that's true with lots of important things that we do, because when you do something important, you have to plan. So, for example, I know, recently we had a party with my family, and it was a lot of fun. But we had a lot of people over, and there were a lot of things to take care of, right? We had to plan out, who was coming. We had to figure out how we were going to invite them. We had to think of what they were going to eat. We had to think about what we were going to do. We had to think about how we were going to clean up the house so that everyone could fit. We had to think about where they parked their cars, right? Because that's another thing to worry about, right? We had to think about a lot of things, right? We had to make sure that all of that was ready before we started doing anything, because whenever you do anything important in your life, you need to make a plan. Okay, whenever you do anything important in your life, you need to make a plan. So the same thing is true when we write. The same thing is true when we write, because when we write, we want to make a plan before we start. We don't want to just start writing and see what comes out. Sometimes that's okay, but usually we want to make a plan. Okay, and so if you want to do some writing that is what's called informational writing, the kind of writing that teaches your reader about something, okay, like nonfiction, okay, one thing that you want to do is you want to make a plan. You want to make a plan. So today I want to teach you some different strategies for planning before you start to write. Okay, the planning shouldn't take you a whole period. It shouldn't take you an hour. It should be quick planning. It should be quick planning. So I'm going to show you some different ways that you can do some quick planning when you're writing informational writing. Informational writing that will teach your reader about something. Okay, so I'm going to show you one strategy at a time, and then you can pause the video and just try it. Or you can listen to the whole thing all the way through and just try them all later. Okay, so here we go. The first strategy for making a plan for writing informational writing, the type of writing that teaches someone, is to do what authors do inside of books, right? They start with what's called a table of contents. You know how a table of contents is in the front of the book? And it tells you this part is going to be about this and this is going to be about that, because then a reader can just turn to that page, okay? So let's start with a table of contents. That's our first strategy, is making a table of contents. So I'm going to write a table of contents. But when I'm making my plan, I want to do it quickly. So I'm just going to write table of contents. Okay. Real publishers actually do that. They call it TOC. Okay. So I'm going to put my title. I'm going to write informational writing about tigers, because I want to teach my reader about tigers. Okay. So now I'm going to give chapter titles. Now these chapter titles don't have to be pages and pages of writing. The titles just have to be a word. And the writing doesn't have to even be pages. Let's just see. Okay, so a tiger. So I'm going to write tiger's body, because I can write a lot about a tiger's body. I can write a chapter about a tiger's habitat. That's where the tiger lives, right? I can write a chapter about the food that a tiger eats, or the diet. Okay. What else? What if I said a tiger's teeth? Because a tiger has big teeth. But that's really part of the body, so I know that's going to go here, right? That's going to be a part of that chapter. I'm not going to make that a chapter. I'm thinking of big things that I could say a lot about, okay? I could say, if I know a lot about a tiger's behavior, because I know something about what they do, how they act, right? See what I'm doing? I said my title, and then I thought about these things that I could say a lot about. They're not little tiny details, they're big. They're not little tiny details, they're big. Okay, I could say a lot about a tiger's body. I could say a lot about where it lives. I could say a lot about what it eats. I could say a lot about what it does. Okay, so that's one strategy for making a plan for your writing, for informational writing that teaches your reader about something. Okay, so you can pause the video now and try that out with something that you know a lot about. Okay, and then when you're ready, you can come back. Hi, so what we did was we just tried out a table of contents. I want to teach you another way that you can plan for your writing, because whenever you do something important, you want to make a plan, right? So sometimes what we can do is we can make a table, a planning table. Okay, it's kind of like a table of contents, but it gives you more space to write. Okay, so what I can do is I can make my table. I'm going to hold my paper like this, horizontally, and I'm going to make as many columns for my table as I think I can make chapters. Okay, so if I was going to do a teaching piece of writing about Australia, because I know a lot about Australia, I'm going to put the title up on top. I'm going to say Australia. And then each of these columns is going to be something about Australia that I know I can teach about. Okay, so for example, I know that I can teach about animals, because there are all sorts of unusual animals in Australia that are only there. I can do a column about cities, because I know a lot about the cities of Australia. I can do a column about fun things to do, so I'm just going to call it fun, right? Fun things to do when you're in Australia. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's around Australia, right? So that's something grown-ups call geography, right? What's near Australia, like what oceans and stuff like that. And then I'm going to make a fifth column too. But you see what I'm doing, right? So now I'm going to load the columns with words that tell me, well, they remind me of what I know that I could write a lot about. Okay? So animals, what are some animals that live in Australia? I know there's koala, kangaroo, there's wallaby. These are animals that I can write a lot about. Okay, I need to know a lot about them. I need to be able to write a few sentences about each of these. Okay, and I keep going, and then I can think about cities. Well, what do I know about cities in Australia? I know Sydney. I know Melbourne. This doesn't have to be beautiful. This is just me scribbling really quickly so I get my ideas down. I know there's a city called Perth that I've heard about and I've read about, right? And I could write as many as I can think of, okay? Geography, I know that it's near New Zealand. I know that it's near the Indian Ocean. But all these things that I'm writing are things that I could say a lot about, okay? Right? So I could say some facts about New Zealand and how it's close to, where it is related to New Zealand. I can say where the Indian Ocean is near that, okay? I can talk about how it's in the southern hemisphere. I'm just going to use an abbreviation and say, what are some other things in the southern hemisphere that are near Australia? But if I don't have a lot to say about it, I'm not going to put it on my table. I'm writing my table pretty quickly, right? You see how I'm doing that? I'm writing my table pretty quickly because planning is quick. Planning is quick, okay? Especially in writing, planning is quick. And then I can go back to this when I start writing, so I think about it, okay? That's the second way that you can plan your writing for informational writing, the kind of writing that teaches others about something, okay? So why don't you try that? Pause the video, try that with something that you know a lot about, and then you can come back for one more thing. Okay, welcome back. So now we're thinking about strategies to make a plan for informational writing. That's writing that teaches someone about something. So we talked about table of contents. We talked about a table with columns. But sometimes you might have to write teaching writing that teaches about something that happened in order, right? things that happened in order. Like, so if you needed to write about like the history of something, or like the life of a famous person, right? Um, then that's in order, and that's a little bit different. Like, one way that you could write about that is to do beginning, middle, and end. But this is just if something happens in order. So if I said I need to write about the life of Benjamin Franklin, or anything else in history, like, I can do what I did when I was writing a story. I can have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So what that looks like here is the beginning might be his childhood, right? The middle might be like his life as an inventor, or anything else I know about him, because Benjamin Franklin was also like a politician. He was a writer, right? And like the third one could be when he's older. Okay, the end of his life. So do you see what I'm doing? And this can also be middle, 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 like in the other one, where it can be being an inventor, being a politician, and he was involved in the American Revolution, and being a writer. Like, I can break this up into lots of parts if I can write about all of those. Okay? That's a third way. If it's something that's controlled by time, something that happens in order, then we can use a beginning, middle, end, just like we did with writing narrative or writing story. Okay? So why don't you try that out? Think about something that happened in order, something that's controlled by time. Maybe that's a historical event, or maybe it's something that just happened. Write about it in order, and you can make a plan for it this way. Okay? Why don't you try that out? Try any of our strategies out. Okay? Make a plan before you start writing for just a few minutes, and then start writing. Okay? And I'll see you next time.